Listen up, MTG players. Rent is due, and your landlords are here to collect. Graham here. They call me Hamhocks42, but you can call me Piggy Banks, which is a problem for you because I'm never broke. And then we also have my associate. How about you introduce yourself?
What's going on, everyone? You know me as Sean or Astralsflame, but around here in these parts, you're gonna call me Burns Money because I got so much I don't know what to do with it. As clearly described by my new financial investment in the background here, the Burns Money Ranch. Because what else is a ranch gonna do, especially with Outlaws and Thunder Junction, as my associate Piggy Banks is about to introduce, because I do believe that is our topic today. The Thunder Junction.
Definitely. Indeed, there are some outlaws at Thunder Junction, and while we officially do not condone this behavior, of course, officially we do not condone the behavior of various and sundry outlaws at Thunder Junction. I gotta say, business in Thunder Junction, on an unrelated note, has been excellent, and we are very excited to provide a report on that and discuss how this new set is going to be impacting the various metas, and of course, our pocketbooks moving forward. So yeah, Outlaws at Thunder Junction. We're just a couple weeks out. We're in the middle of spoiler season. We haven't seen the whole set yet, but we've seen a number of cards, including some very powerful rares and mythics. So so we're gonna go ahead and discuss. We're probably gonna mention individual cards specifically. We're not gonna go down them necessarily like one by one, but we're gonna be chatting about what we've seen so far, cards we're excited about, and how things are gonna be moving forward, and what kind of a splash this set's gonna make.
Yeah.
So that's the plan.
Emphasis on the moo, because holy cow, have Piggy Banks and I really, we have made sure that our stocks are in perfect investment from the holiness of the holy ox and the holy, well, there's a lot of holy in the holy ox and the holy cow. That's probably our best investment piece thus far.
Absolutely. I gotta be honest, with the moment I saw that comment, I found religion, believe it or not. It's really, I'm just praying for some bovine intervention in my future. It's going to be something special. Don't make no mistake, everybody.
Dude.
All right. So this set is going into standard. And so as a result, we're going to have a lot of various things impacted. So I'm curious, like right off the top. So Burns Money here. What cards are you most excited to get your hands on with this set? Whether you're playing with them or you think they're going to be good investment opportunities. What are your thoughts? What are some that you got your eye on?
I got my eye on a few things there, Piggy Banks, but I gotta say, first and foremost, it has to be the Terror of the Peaks, because that is just a house. That is a good financial investment of a card, and that is just a good way to close out the games. I was talking with some alleged compadres at the Outback as I was acquiring the new property behind me here about what I was doing, and they was telling me about this new dragon that was coming up. I was like, what new dragon? They were like, well, there's this 5/4 that commits a crime, and I'm like, you had me at alleged crime. Remember, always had an alleged. I had to tell them. They didn't believe me, but we know how that is. But they were telling me this thing. It was a real Terror of the Peaks, and I was like, well, I know a Terror of the Peaks. It was a sweet thing. It did some damage and had some crazy ideas with it. And they were like, well, they showed it to me, and by and behold, you know what? It was a reprint. I couldn't believe it. My stocks were so ready. I picked up all the copies. So every one of the new Terror of the Peaks that someone may get in the set is just one that I happen to be like, well, you know what? I'm going to let you have one because you need to feel the joy of playing Terror of the Peaks with Yargle and Multani and push and pull.
Oh my goodness. That is absolutely insane. And I got to say, I was very grateful to see this reprint because, just a few days ago, coincidentally, I definitely offloaded my my M21 copies at a premium value. So that's going to be great. But this card is so good, I'm still going to be picking up a handful of these when they come back out. Buying low and all that jazz. But you got to be playing with this card. It is insane. And so you mentioned Yargle and Multani push-pull. So Yargle Multani's got 18 power. And Terror of the Peaks says, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So if it's in your graveyard, and Yargle Multani's in your graveyard, you pay 6 mana. You pull them out onto the battlefield, and they get haste. So you get to dome your opponent for 18 damage just cuz. And then if they somehow survive this, you then get to attack them with these two monsters. 5 power in the air, 18 power on the ground. I mean, that is so much damage. You could be winning Commander games with that move. That is wild.
You should be winning Commander games with this, but in specific to Standard, yes, This is just going to win you the game. I could not think of anything better than having that as the Terror of the Peaks to really showcase. So, to my heart, that is what I am most excited about in terms of what is coming in for this amazing set.
Only way that gets better is if you have a Ziatora on the battlefield and you get to fling that frog at the end. Oh,
A+.
It's,
you know,
the amount of damage. Oh my goodness.
It's
ridiculous.
Almost like we happen to have something that, goes on a spree that lets you cheat these creatures into play to do something similar to that.
I like where your head's at. I definitely wanted to talk about that as well, because yeah, this card, the next card. So we're talking about ways to cheat stuff in for 6 mana, right? And there are a lot of ways you can do that in the game, right? So we talk about pull, right? The push pull. This set's got another one that I'm trying to get to right now, because this thing is absolutely bonkers, and I want to make sure that I get this exactly right. You're going to be blown away. I believe it is called Smuggler's Surprise or something like that.
I do believe that is the one.
Apparently, the Trojan horse was some kind of Western trope. That's news to me, but hey, whatever. The card's beautiful. I'm not complaining. I gotta say, I did not have this ready to go. I sure should have, though, because come on.
Piggy Banks, it's
all
okay.
Right.
We already know you got all the copies in an investment. You just,
I mean, of course, I got them coming.
You're holding the suspense. You're doing the thing.
When you just buy like 1 million copies, you just forget about it, because like that investment is set. It'll take care of itself. Exactly. So Smuggler's Surprise. It is an instant. I'm gonna reiterate. This card is an instant for a single green. And it does nothing. Oh, but wait, there's more. It has this, what is called Spree. There's a new mechanic, and it basically is like a multi-kicker, but you got to pick at least one, and the kickers are what add the text to the spell, because it doesn't have anything without them. And this thing has 3 different modes. 1, 2 generic. Mill 4 cards. You may put up to 2 creatures and or land cards from among the mill cards in your hand.
That's
3 mana, that effect. 3 mana, that effect at instant speed. I'm not mad at that. That's already good.
I like that. I do like that.
Yep. And then it also has another mode, 4 and a green. So if you pick just this mode, we're talking 4 green, right? You may put up to 2 creature cards from your hand out of the battlefield. And these resolve in that order, by the way. So even if you don't have any creatures in your yard, if you're able to play for all this, if you mill some creatures, you just get them back in your hand.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Done.
+1. Creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain hexproof and indestructible 10 to 10. That's just a nice little bonus if need be.
It's a good bonus.
It's a good bonus. It is. So this card is cracked, right?
It would have to be. I mean, being able to just grab something back and put 2 things into play. I mean, there are just so many ways that this goes right for profiting. I mean, we can think about the obvious. You can do an Atraxan and a Tali, because that just seems disgusting. But of course, like you'd mentioned earlier, Ziatora and Yagal Maltani, deck in 16, done and done. Even if we just happen to cheat 2 Terror of the Peaks in, we cheat in any 2 creatures we wanted. Ooh,
that ain't
this
bad.
card is going to be so great. I cannot wait to herd up more copies, if you will. Partner. What is it
Absolutely.
that the fine folks say? A yeehaw?
Yeehaw. And exactly. This thing is bananas, because I mentioned that it was an instant. I stressed this. This is valuable because on your opponent's end step is when you're going to be doing this. If you can pay 6 mana at your opponent's end step, if you happen to have any number of these cards in hand, and we're talking about, like you're saying, exactly. You got to tally it, you got to track it. That's the dream, right? If you can pull that off. But in the decks where you're running Terror to Peaks, where you're running Yaga Matani, where you're doing that Jun nonsense, right? Which, don't get me wrong, I say nonsense lovingly.
It's a beautiful
If you're doing that kind of thing, it's a beautiful thing. Like, if you have to settle, right, for a Terror to Peaks and an Ansrag the Mole God,
oh, no.
I think you're going to be okay.
I think you're doing just fine.
You can do it just fine. You still get 9 mana worth of creatures, doming your opponent for 8 in the face, and then you are untapping and starting your turn. Insane. Actively insane. So I think this card in like Jun Stompy with a kind of a high curve and a lot of critters. Oh my goodness. I mean, actually just about any green big critter kind of deck. Nothing short of bananas.
Piggy Banks, it does bring to mind a certain card we saw back in Aftermath that just might be a little bit more crazy coming in here. What if we happen to put this together with the Chanja, the what was it? Hope's Beacon there, copying spells. Now, isn't that just like a nice big payoff? That feels pretty good.
That is fantastic.
I love it.
Because you got to keep in mind, when you're copying spells, whenever you're copying spells, you get all the modes. of any additional costs that you spent, right? So you can copy these sprees all day, and that's fine. Another note with sprees though, like so, yeah, no. Bottom line, Chandra hopes beacon with this.
A+.
Make it happen. That's nasty, and I love it. So, and if you spend 8 mana on it, you get to mill 4 cards, put 2 critters or lands from the milled cards into your hand. Whatever creatures you get from that, bam, just right to the board. And being able to do that twice, like if you have more than 2 critters, then all of a sudden, like 4 creatures at an end step, that's insane. Like that's nothing. Again, nothing short of absolutely bonkers. I love it. Yeah,
Beautiful.
and the fact that it has this added bonus if you've got large power creatures down, it has like a heroic intervention just incidentally.
Just because, right? Just because.
Just cause. That is wild. So there's another spree card that I did want to talk about, which kind of interestingly enough is one of the only ways that control players are going to be able to deal with this consistently. And that's a card called Final Showdown. Have you seen this thing?
I have not, but I have heard the name, and that name itself just speaks wonderfully. In a business deal, the Final Showdown, the hand in hand, I love the name.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. When you got the contract all written up and you're just waiting for that final, dotting the T's, crossing the I's, it's great. So, Final Showdown, instant for a single white with spree. +1, all creatures lose all abilities until end of turn. 2 mana humility. Everybody loses all their stuff. No indestructible, no hexproof, no nothing. Just get it gone. Love that. No
Beautiful.
death triggers, no big deal. And that's going to be relevant here in just a second. It also has a mode. 1, choose a creature you control. It gains indestructible at the end of turn.
Ooh.
So nobody has anything except my big dude's got indestructible. That's great. And putting that on freaking the Quake Mole could be insane. Just saying. Then you've got 3 white. Destroy all creatures. The floor on this thing.
The floor is just set so perfect. Floor.
6 mana, instant speed, destroy all creatures.
Beautiful. Instant speed. Control is gonna love this. I can just see that now. Dealing with like a board of say like morphers and handling things as they come in, fantastic. Protecting your big thing, fantastic. And instant speed board wipe. Not that we needed more board wipes, but you know what? At least it does not exile, which I appreciate to protect my assets.
Yes.
But I do like instant speed answering. I do find interesting gameplay with that effect.
Most definitely. And honestly, the first 2 modes I think are truly excellent by themselves. This card is playable on every single level. Think about this, right? Okay, it's late in the game. We got a couple different things we can say here. So let's assume it's like it's mid game. I got a good 5-drop. I'm attacking and you got a death touch a block. You're like, okay, cool. I'll just block with this. I can say 2 mana. Cool. Your thing dies. And my big critter is just still coming through. It would lose trample if it had that, so that's something to keep in mind. But at the end, not a big deal. Or maybe you're attacking and your opponent has like a Glissa Sunslayer down. First strike death touch. Haha, I'll just put her in front of this. This is gonna be fine.
And
2 mana.
It's a Glissa no more.
Yep, exactly. Instantly that Glissa is the dead. That is the only Glissa the dead. That's just what's happening there.
The dead. That's the newest iteration.
The dead.
Done and done. Not coming back.
Full name. That's it. And on top of that, even if it's like a basic 3/3, like let's say that I'm just attacking a freaking hill giant into Glissa, right? You're thinking, fine, this is gonna be great. I spent 3 mana. Guess what? My hill giant's indestructible, and your Glissa's dead. Like, I don't know. I love it. I think this is gonna be just absolutely bananas. And the other thing, if your opponent's like, okay, cool, I got an alpha strike down. I'm gonna activate my Restless Cottage. I line it all up. They only got 1 card in hand. What are the chances it's anything I gotta worry about? Swing in, guess what? Final Showdown. Now, even your land is dead. Incredible.
The land is out of there.
Get it gone. So this is going to be one of those things that is arriving in standard just a couple months before Farewell finally rotates, and so we get to live with this now. So, yeah, it's just the sweepers they're just what they are. Apparently, we're just going to get a sweeper in every set for the foreseeable future, which, as a result, sweepers need to be really special in order for them to be good investments because we got redundancy, we got options. Just tell that to the 10,000 copies of by invitation only I have. Ugh, that was not ideal, by the way. But in any event, Final Showdown. This card I do think is special. I do think this is going to see a lot of play, and I do think it's going to be an absolute staple in Commander. It's going to see play in Standard. Every control mage ever is going to want one of these. It's great.
Absolutely. In this kind of case, when you have a situational effect, it is the best way to have something in. As we go through and things develop, especially in the meta, modal cards are some of the best impacts we can find in the format, not only in design space, but in creativity of decks that you can find, because of all the utility that can come in from that. So the fact that you now have a humility popped on a board clear and indestructible, there are so many ways that you can do and use this. No different than some of the other cards. Like I do believe, if I am not mistaken, speaking of Spree, there is a new tutor that has come on in to this set.
You know it. There sure is. This, I believe, is Insatiable Avarice, which I gotta say, that speaks to me. That name, I feel this. Absolutely. Yeah, so avarice, greed and the desire to obtain and control. Yeah, I get this. I get it. So Insatiable Avarice, sorcery for a black, has the different spree modes. I haven't quite figured out the best template for reading a spree card yet, but we'll figure this out. So 2 generic. Search your library for a card, then shuffle, put that card on top. So total mana cost 3 for kind of a vampiric tutor style effect. That's not great, but stay with me here. Black. Target player draws 3 cards and loses 3 life. That is remarkable. So this thing has an opportunity to be either black, lose 3 life, draw 3 cards. You got ambitions cost, but it's 3 instead of 4. And this is target player. So if your opponent's at 3, you can just be like 3 mana, draw 3. Oh, you're dead. Like, oh, sorry about that. If you have a Sheldred online and your opponent's at 9,
this is a game
you can say, yo, you need to draw 3 cards. Oh, sorry, you're dead. It's wild. But on top of that, if you were going to be drawing the cards and you want to make sure that you draw something good, add another 2 mana to this, and you get a tutor for one of the cards that you draw.
I will say, if we do happen to pay the full cost for this tutor, I don't mind the fact of 5 mana to tutor up something to the top, then draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. For 5 mana, I am very actually okay with that in knowing what I'm going to draw into. Especially if I do recall, this is instant speed.
It's a sorcery, actually.
Well, it's sorcery. My apologies, nonetheless.
I know, but it's all good. But still, exactly. It's funny because when you look at it, it's like 3 mana to put something on top of my library. I'm out. 5 mana to draw 2 cards and tutor for 1 into your hand.
Done.
That's pretty nice. Yeah, that's lovely. So I think, I think this card is no joke. And honestly, 3 mana to draw 3 cards. Honestly, if you don't have the extra mana, you just need to refill. If you're in an aggressive deck, that's great. Like, that's still good. Yeah.
It is just a perfect going rate. And honestly, of the mechanics in the set, Spree, I am very excited for. Or should I say, Forced Kicker.
It is, yes.
It is Forced Kicker. Because you do have to choose. You cannot cast and not choose. You do have to cast and play at least one spell, which is a Forced Kicker, if you will.
Most definitely. So while on the topic of Spree, so we're not necessarily intending to focus purely on Spree, but I gotta say, the cards that they spoiled so far, the Spree cards are all absolutely insane. Like, I think they're nothing short of bonkers. The next one, we got Great Train Heist. Have you seen this thing?
I have not seen this thing, but it leads into a point. Let's talk Great Train Heist first, because I have a follow-up point that is rather symbolic with this card.
Excellent. Fantastic. I love it. So, Great Train Heist, for a single red, Scott Spree. First cast, 2 red. So total 2 red. Untap all creatures you control. If it's your combat phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. Next mode, 2 generic. Creatures you control get +1/+0 endgame first strike till end of turn. And single red, choose target opponent. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to that player this turn, create a tap treasure token.
So we're talking value.
That's value, baby.
Value.
If you like to attack, especially in Commanded, this thing has an opportunity to turn like what could be an okay combat into a blowout. So I like that. I enjoy that.
I appreciate that. That kind of effect where you get to redirect the type of flow of the game is so functional and so great. It breathes in just exactly what we want to pick up for some good stuff.
Absolutely. And you can wait until after they declare blockers. Once they declare blockers, you can be like, by the way, all my guys have first strike, and they're going to hit you again. I think that's great. Yeah. I'm going to kill all your blockers, then swing at you one more time. So,
that kind of effect I would love to see more, and I love the fact that they are introducing that, because this is a very situational card, especially, if we're looking at the standard format, bringing this in as a potential sideboard piece to redirect for additional combats if you are in a very aggressive style deck and maybe blocks are not favorable to you, this can suddenly turn that around and switch things and rolling. I was gonna mention with the train heist as the follow-up point.
Mhm.
We are getting the rest of the fast lands in the set, which I think is phenomenal. I love that the are completing the set, and all the alternate art of these cards coming in is a picture of the train from the cinematic. And if you blend them all together, all 5 in a row, it shows the giant locomotive that we allegedly associate with certain liberating it packages. Again, allegedly.
Excellent. I mean, to be fair, that train was running awfully heavy. I mean, we needed to lighten the load a little bit. So we were doing them a
Absolutely.
favor, really. I mean,
Really, yeah.
those ruffians, those miscreants,
Mm,
I mean, maybe what they were doing wasn't all bad. Yeah,
maybe, but
perhaps.
isn't that another new mechanic we are looking at here? The definition of an outlaw?
Indeed, outlaws have been defined, which is pretty fantastic. So they've defined outlaws as a certain collection of creature types. And let me again. I'm going to make sure that I pull this up because if I got this wrong, I'm gonna be kicking myself. So there's a whole series of folks who are considered outlaws, and those are assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. So those are considered outlaws, and so it's just this category that they have for this particular type. Now, it's relevant because certain cards care about outlaws. We have like shoot the sheriff, which says destroy target non-outlaw. So you just can't touch them. So if somebody's got a rogue or warlock, you just can't touch it. So okay, good to know. Uh, but yeah, so there are other cards that care about how many outlaws you have on your board. And so as a result, you can do kind of synergies that you would normally do with like a single creature type. Instead, you can kind of mix and match these, which I think is going to be pretty fun. So yeah, that's a new thing that we're doing here. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Potty because
Yeah,
there
a
were like
little
certain
bit.
Potty classes. Yeah, it's kind of like that, but I think they're gonna handle it a little differently.
I
Like
think
in
so.
Zendikar Rising, all the potties like that you wanted to get a benefit of having like a full potty, or you get +1, +0, whatever for however many members of your potty. That was fine, but it just I don't know. I think that mechanic was a little awkward. I don't think that's how they're gonna do with this one, and that's great.
Yeah, I would have to say there it looks like the initial part is not going to be the same, but there are going to be some very sweet payoffs. I do like how it is looking here, especially I think when we take a look at the part of the next mechanic that envelops in here, which is banding. I mean, sorry, not banding. No, it is the opposite half of banding. Which, if we remember in Dominaria United, you had enlist. We have another version of that called Saddle Up with our
Indeed.
mounts.
So yeah, there are certain creature types called mounts, and mounts have this ability called saddle, right? And the way that that works, it's actually pretty straightforward. What you're doing with a mount, mounts are creatures all the time, which makes sense, right? Like a horse is a creature by itself. It can move, block, attack, defend, whatever. It can do all of its own stuff per usual, right? But if somebody's riding it, maybe it'll be better at all these things. And that's exactly how this works. So in combat, actually at any point during your turn prior to combat, I believe it's sorcery speed, you can choose to saddle a creature. And the way that you do that is you tap creatures up to its saddle cost. Like you might have saddle 1, saddle 3, whatever the case may be. And just like vehicles, you crew them effectively, but they call it saddle, which yeah, the nomenclature on that's good call. It works well. So when something is saddled, it gets an extra bonus in combat. And so it'll say like if it's saddled, it gains a certain ability or something triggers when it hits, but only if it's saddled. So you get an extra little bonus. Like we have a new Gitrog monster
We
because
do.
why not have a
Why
new
not?
Gitrog monster? That's yeah. So the Gitrog Ravenous Ride. This thing is a 6/5 for 5. It's kind of the premier mount we've seen so far. Mythic Trample Haste, 6/5 for 5 with Trample and Haste.
Loving this already.
I'm already listening. Exactly.
It's
But
already
and it
in.
has saddle 1. So it's easy to saddle. Whenever the Gitrog Ravenous Ride deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that's added this turn. If you do, draw X cards. Then put up to X land cards from your hand out of the battlefield tapped, where X is the sacrifice creature's power.
Now that draw and land drops in. Gonna love that.
I'm just gonna point this out. Mosswood Dread Knight. You tap the Mosswood Dread Knight, you swing with the frog. I got the 6/5 trampler coming through you. If even 1 damage touches your face, I'm drawing 3 cards. And I'm sacrificing the Dread Knight, which is I'm gonna be recurring anyway, so who cares?
And you're gonna just be
Like,
drawing more cards. It's gonna be great. And you know, you're hitting
exactly.
land drops in, you're thinning the deck. I love the flavor of this card. I do actually
Mm.
think the haste is what I think makes this card potentially very strong and playable, especially when we look at like a Golgari mid-range type of list where you know you can change in the 5-drop slot with like an Aclazotz and your Gitrog monster, drawing in some cards. You could theoretically saddle up an Aclazotz on the Gitrog, sack the Aclazotz, it transforms into a land, you draw 4 cards, you pitch some more in, and then, you know, you just reflip the Aclazotz on the following turn.
That's bonkers.
It's
Like,
it's
that's
crazy. This set is
oh,
just it's crazy. I mean, the mechanics are flavorful, things are going in the right direction, and I'm a big fan, Piggy Banks.
I love it. By the way, this cat, I can't help but think of Froghemoth, right? Because it was a 5/5 trample haste that in my head was like the biggest, craziest thing you can do with 5 mana in green in its time in standard. You know what's crazy? Do you remember the stats on Froghemoth? Like how big power toughness?
If I recall, it was a 4/4 Piggy Banks, if I am not
Correct.
mistaken.
Yes. In my head, I could have swore that thing was like a 6/6.
By today's
The impact
standards, it should have been.
Right, by today's standards, absolutely. And so here we have the new frog, the hasty 5-drop frog. We have a 6/5 with haste and trample instead of a 4/4. Granted, that Froghemoth would grow as it ate the graveyard, so it got a lot bigger fast. But starting stats from 4/4. I think part of the reason for that is just that mono green aggro deck back in the day was so fast that life totals were so low by the time that thing showed up. Anyway,
It just ended the
yeah,
game either way.
it
And
just
I
ended
mean,
it. Hmm.
you know, nowadays people are dealing 10 damage instead of 20. With what we got with the Bant Infect deck that is going around, or just decking one shot with the World Souls Rage. It is a wild time, if you will, as people explore the Thunder Junction. We are not even at the Thunder Junction yet.
Not yet, but we're getting there. Which, by the way, actually, I'm glad you mentioned the Ban Toxic deck. We mentioned the final showdown earlier, that white instant speed sweeper. That has the ability to remove all abilities from all creatures.
No more toxic.
Against the Ban Toxic deck, that turns off the Rob Priest and it turns off the toxic attacks. So they just saying, like, you'll still take the normal damage, but you're not getting poisoned. Like, it almost fogs that deck.
But
Anyway,
no
just,
toxic.
just
That's the big thing. No toxic.
just a fun thought for you, everybody. Maybe some good sideboard tech against the Ban Toxic decks. Just saying. All right. Crazy, absolutely crazy. But yeah, so the mounts, yeah, so that's mounts. We talked about Spree, we talked about Outlaws. We haven't talked yet about committing crimes.
That is true. I allegedly Banks
Allegedly.
allegedly remember.
Hey, I mean, some folks out here are committing crimes. And we cannot confirm nor deny our involvement in said crimes.
We may have some
yeah.
particular investments, but again, allegedly. But yeah, committing
Allegedly.
a crime is a very important thing, because that is another mechanic that has been defined as certain cards only work when you commit a crime.
Absolutely. And sometimes they trigger when you commit a crime. So what the heck is committing a crime? Well, fun fact, the card Farewell is not a crime. I'm just saying. When you're committing it feels like it. But anyway, when you are committing a crime in Magic the Gathering, you're touching your opponent's stuff. If you're targeting a spell, the graveyard, the face, the permanence, whatever, if you're targeting them with any kind of effect or ability or anything they own, well, anything they control, anything they control, if you're touching it, you're committing a crime. That's simple. And there are cards that trigger when you commit crimes. There are cards that allow you to do things if you've committed a crime. Yeah, there's a lot related to the committing of crimes. So counter spells are crimes. Burn spells are crimes. Anything that can remove something from a graveyard. So things like Agatha's Soul Cauldron. You can simply tap it, exile something from the graveyard, you've committed a crime. It's that simple. Yep. So
the Ressin is a crime, for example, too.
Yep. Absolutely. There's a lot. I think, honestly, we've all been committing a whole bunch of crimes throughout the course of this.
We have.
Game.
It's so true. No
yeah,
one is innocent when we get to Thunder Junction.
Absolutely. Nope. Everybody's a criminal. So it just is what it is. And if you're not a criminal, you need to run more removal. Just saying. So yeah. So here we are. There's one card that focuses on committing a crime that I want to talk about, because I think it's kind of exemplifies what we're talking about, and that is Marchesa, Dealer of Death.
An A+ card coming in.
This card is insane, right? So it's in Grixis. It's blue, black, red. We've seen Marchesa in Grixis before. So all right, rock on. Legendary creature, human rogue, because of course she's a 3/4. 3, 4 for 3. Whenever you commit a crime, you may pay 1 generic. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, other into the yard. So you get a little, yeah, you get a little, what's that called? Strategic planning, you know,
Yeah,
on a,
that's some value
yeah,
going on there. I do like that, setting up what you're getting and putting in your fuel in it. That is a good engine of a card as you are committing crimes and plotting uh, for your next card. Although not exactly plotting, as we will discuss in a few minutes, no doubt.
which is another thing, absolutely. But yeah, so committing crimes in this case, it's also in Grixis. Like, Grixis is the perfect criminal colors. You got all the kill spells, you got all the counter spells, you got all the burn spells, you got all the spells, right? Like, it's just all
It's
of them,
criminal,
just spells.
literally.
That's exactly. It's absolutely criminal what you're doing with that. So I love it. Fun fact, actually, if you have an effect that says you can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, or like, let's say you have an effect that says untap target creature, you can untap your opponent's things. That's like doing them a favor, right? Nah, you just committed a crime.
Yeah, it's a crime.
That's a crime. Don't do that. Knock it out. I would
Gotta
like to
love
cast
it.
Giant Growth on your thing to trigger my Marchesa. Yeah, that's right. Buffing your creature. I'm committing crimes. I'm on a crime spree over here. I love it. I get a kick out of this. Flavorfully, it's enjoyable.
Is
So,
the perfect mix of things.
absolutely. Or if you have any of those effects, let's say like target player, like I'm trying to think of a good example. I think there are a couple where like you put cards face down and target player like picks one. Like that's a crime, even though you're just drawing cards. It's crazy. I love it. So it all depends on the wording. If you're targeting a player, targeting this stuff, you've committed a crime. So good stuff. So you mentioned plotting. You alluded to plotting,
I did, but it's not the
which
plot we may think of when it comes to story plot. But it is a harsh environment out here in Thunder Junction, and you need to lay down the grounds on how to win.
absolutely. So when you are plotting, what you're doing, there's certain cards that say plot on them. And when they do, what that does is you have the ability to pay for them, and you put them in an exile. So they go into exile, and you just kind of hang out with them. So I mean, one example of a card with plot. I'm just going to talk about it because this thing's silly, and I just want to give you an excuse to like, edit it into the video version of the show. Loan Shack. It's a 3/4 for 3 and a blue, and it has plot 3 and a blue. So let's say you're not in a good position. And by the way, when it enters the battlefield, if you cast 2 or more spells this turn, you draw a card. So you have to still cast 2 spells in order to draw a card of this thing entering. Now, I don't think this is going to be constructed playable. Let me make that abundantly clear. But in limited, this is going to be a lot of fun. But if you want to make sure you got that trigger, well, getting that on a 4-drop is going to be going to be really hard. On 10-4, if you just cast it out, what are the chances that you cast 2 other spells this turn? Unless you got a deck full of Ornithopters, that's just not happening, right?
Not at all.
So what you can do instead is you can plot it for 4. When you play the 4 to plot this thing, it goes into exile, and now you can free cast it on a future turn for free. And so if you've got a 2-drop and a 3-drop in your hand, you can plot Loan Shark and just be patient. Just set it aside. And then on the next turn, you can drop a 2-drop, drop a 3-drop, then plot the Loan Shark. Or play the Loan Shark from exile with off the plot. You've all of a sudden put 3 creatures online, one of which is a 3/4, and you draw a card. In limited, that seems like a really good turn. Just
that
saying.
seems very good in limited, and I do love free spells, Piggy Banks, as you do as well. So the fact that we are upping our investments for a turn, we are funneling in and getting a huge payoff on the later turn. I do like that type of mechanic coming on in for this set here.
Absolutely. And there are a couple other ones, like another one called Slick Shot Show Off is a red version that I think is going to be a little more playable and constructed. It's a bird wizard, 1/2 flying haste, and it plots for 1 in a red. And it has the ability, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +2/+0 till end of turn. So it's kind of like prowess, but it's all power. It's 2 power instead of +1/+1. And it's got flying and haste. So you plot it on turn 2 or whatever. You wait until you have a monstrous rage, play with fire, and one other 1-drop, Kumano Face Kakazan or whatever. Then you throw it down, just play all those things, and you got a whole bunch of power in the air coming at your opponent. Now, when something is plotted, it is face up so they can see it coming and plan accordingly. So be aware of that. But yeah, I think honestly, if people are clever with how they plot, it reminds me a little bit of Fortell. It's kind of like Fortell and Suspend kind of got together, and this is
and that
what we
kind of mesh. But you do really get to plot, because even if your opponent sees it coming, are they really going to see what you are plotting about? It is a very aptly named mechanic for this set.
Absolutely. And there are a couple of cards that allow you to plot cards that don't have plot costs, and things can get weird when you do that. one card called Make Your Own Luck. It's a Simic card. 3 green blue. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may exile a non-land card from among them. If you do, it becomes plotted. Put the rest in your hand. So you plot a card, any card that you find other than lands. And then on a future turn, you can just play it for free.
I do
This is
like
a
that
5-mana
investment.
sorcery. It's a 5-mana sorcery that is going to draw you 3 cards, bottom line. And if one of those 3 cards happens to be your Atraxa, or if you're in an older format, happens to be a Ulamog,
That is a beautiful thing to want to plot.
that has an opportunity to be absolutely insane. And the reason that I want to call that out is this gives me, this is an uncommon, by the way. This is an uncommon, this isn't even a rare. So this is insane. And beyond that, like in addition to just how nuts this is, it reminds me of Aetherworks Marvel. Did you ever play against Aetherworks Marvel? Because with Aetherworks Marvel, your deck had to be full of really, really bad cards. So that you could drop a turn 4 and then like spin and hope to find one of the huge things in your deck. And if you found your Ugin or your Ulamog, GG's, right? Because you just get it. And this feels very similar to that. It's 5, you get to spin and you get whatever you find. But you don't get it right away. And that's one of the things that I think is going to separate this. This costs 5, Aetherworks costs 4. This also, you have to plot and then cast the thing on a later turn. So if you're going up against control, they're going to laugh at you when you play this. Unless you have a Cavern of Souls down, the Naming Angel, just say it. Then they're going to be scared. But if they have counter spells back up and you like spin into an Atraxa or an Atali, they're just going to be like, all right, cool, I know that's coming. So I'm just going to hold up my counter spells. That's that. And you're going to have to pick your moment very carefully as to when you just run out the thing. So be aware of that. Be careful. But in general, I think that card has an opportunity to be kind of insane.
I definitely agree. There is certainly potential that could be done with that card. You do definitely have to be careful with it, like you said. Timing is everything when you are plotting ahead in the game with this mechanic. If you plot incorrectly, well, your scheme is not going to work. Your crime spree is not going to function. So keep in mind exactly what you are planning to do as you envelop forward in Thunder Junction. But I gotta say, overall, this set is looking very strong in its own right. We have lots of new legendaries hitting the field, which is very reminiscent of a recent set, kind of where we had a ton of legendaries going in. However, I do believe it brings a lot of flavor to our standard environment and will be having a good impact on the game itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we talked about a lot of different cats today. I think the general power level of this set is very, very high. These guys are going to see a ton of play. So you may want to pick some of these up because they're going to be relevant players in standard for the next, almost 3 years. So, I mean, what more do you want? I say, yeah, we gotta get while the getting's good. And these will also probably be impacting older formats too.
Yep.
Tons of great card draw engines, tons of great interaction. Absolutely fantastic. We talked about a lot of the big green stuff because let's be honest, that's just fun. But there's also a lot of really inexpensive stuff that's going to see play too. So
absolutely, and you can bet we are going to be able to touch on more cards because previews have only just started. We have basically going into next week. So when we get together coming in on our next episode, we will be able to talk as a whole over some of our top picks for what you should be picking up for Thunder Junction. And if I may also say, if you are looking to play with the Thunder Junction cards a little bit early, both Piggy Banks and myself will be participating in the streamer event on April 10th, popping in there with some of the cards and stuff. So you can see us committing our crimes and our crime speeds in the streamer event, which is going to be very exciting.
Absolutely. We are definitely going to be doing our best to showcase what the set has to offer. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll see you there.
Absolutely. Hey, Piggy Banks, as we go to close out on our ranching days here and moving forward with Thunder Junction, riding off into our wild sunset, where can the fine people find you, my friend?
Well, you can find me here on Twitch. Well, if you're watching this live, twitch.tv/hamhocks42. I'm over there playing Monday through Friday in the mornings. Hopefully we'll see you there. I'm also on TikTok, Twitter, and I am on Instagram as well, Hawks42 on all those various platforms. Also on the YouTubes. Looking forward to seeing you in all those places. Link tree in the description, I would imagine. So, yes, hopefully we'll see you. And how about yourself? Where can people find you on the various and sundry interwebs?
Everyone, you can find me at Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Astralsflame. If you are not playing Jund and or Dragons, and that is Dragons with an S between the brackets, then you should at least be playing a 1, if not a lot. especially as we go into Thunder Junction with some very spicy dragon reprints like the Terror of the Peaks that you know I will be playing. But friends, well, compatriots, I guess real estate investments are collectees. Your rent is due, and we are collecting this week, and we will be back
Absolutely.
next week.